or a motion to recommend to the Vernon Village Board to adopt, as listed in the agenda, an ordinance to amend the Village of Vernon zoning map to include shoreline zoning and create consistency on certain individual parcels as presented, comma, an ordinance to create the Village of Vernon shoreline zoning overlay district with Chapter 300 and amend the definitions within Chapter 300. 3, an ordinance to create the Village of Vernon shoreline wetland zoning ordinance, and 4, an ordinance to amend the Village of Vernon floodplain ordinance, all as presented and discussed at the public hearing tonight. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion by Plan Commission. Hearing none. Plan Commission, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now to the Village Board. This is a joint meeting. The Village Board could do several things. One is to have a motion to accept the Plan Commission recommendation to adopt these ordinances, subject to final review by the planner and legal review. Another would be to table a decision to wait until later. Or third, well, second, I guess there's only two. Well, third, well, let me say this. Second, you could just deny it, deny the passing them. Third would be to table, to wait for final ordinances. But then, if you're of a mind to wait for the final ordinances to be drafted, then we should have a motion to direct drafting the new ordinance and amendments as recommended by the Plan Commission. So it's, to me, since I just made a motion from the Plan Commission to recommend approval, I'd like to see these approved. To me, the decision is to either approve them subject to final review by planner and legal review, or if you would like to wait and for final drafts, then we would entertain a motion to direct, drafting new ordinance and amendments as recommended by the Plan Commission.
And Mr. President, it would be sending them to Sean and John Macy now, because they're drafted the best that we can do for now.
Right.
Because you know what John Macy, not you, Sean, but John Macy does to our ordinances. So they're ready to be ripped apart.
Right, there is a draft, and you've received a draft ordinance, so our clerk administrator has taken first shot. That's typically our practice.
Right.
Tries to make for a more efficient review. And Sean will give you another, obviously we want your input on the final version.
I'm done with these.
Oh, you're done.
Yeah,
You're washing your hands.
let John have them.
I've been beating Sean up for the last 2 weeks. What about this word? What about that?
Okay, but you might want to see what,
Oh, he'll see
after the
final.
damage that Mr. Macy might make to them. Okay. So, board members, I'll just open it up for discussion to the threshold question. That is, I'll pre-assume that we want to move forward with some kind of approval. Would you like to approve them subject to final review by planner and legal, or would you like to see ordinances more of a final form to adopt? There's no real rush, although the DNR would like us to proceed with, and
The sooner the better,
the
right?
sooner the better, right?
But I am in constant contact with the DNR and FEMA on the floodplain issue, so they know and appreciate what the Board and Plan Commission are doing. So we're on top of it internally.
Yeah, yes, and they know the municipal process takes time and drafting takes time. I don't know that they're going to get them any sooner, whichever motion we decide to make. I mean, I think
Right.
it'll be the same timing, so I don't think the timing has, much to do with it.
I would recommend that we just approve it subject to the legal and planner review. Get it going.
Okay?
I'll second that motion.
And you have enough of that motion.
I have enough for all four motions.
Okay.
Works for me.
And this is all four ordinances you're referring to,
Yes, sir.
and subject to final review by planner and legal. Okay?
Mr. President, you did state that for the record when the Plan Commission, just so everybody's clear that those 4 categories were in your,
Right.
I just wanted to state that
Yes,
for the
it's the
record.
same 4 categories as the motion from recommendation for approval from the plan commission.
Right.
So everybody's, yes, absolutely clear on that. And we've had a motion made and seconded. Discussion. Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, well, that went fairly well. I was gonna suggest taking a break, but I don't think we need to take a break. Okay, so for, number 7 on the agenda is, Mr. Schultz, and Mr. Schultz is here. And Mr. Schultz, if you could just state your name and address, even though we know who you are, for the record.
David P. Schultz, address is S66W22470, West National Avenue. And I also own the property next door, which is 490 West National Avenue.
Okay, and Mr. Sean, we'll turn it over to you. Mr. Schultz has made a request. It's gone through Plan Commission once on a conceptual basis, and we've given him conceptual approval. And I think he needs final approval deadlines, May 30th, Plan Commission, and June 29th for Village Board, so we have plenty of time here.
Not necessarily approval, but action by those
Action.
by those
Right,
dates.
not- yeah, sorry, if I said approval, action. And we were between conceptual approval and today, we were waiting on Waukesha County approval of a driveway off of, I guess it would be County U, Guthrie Road. But Sean, why don't you, with that little background, tee us up, and we'll proceed.
Sure. As you mentioned, we did review this. It was back in February. There's 5 parcels at the corner of northeast corner of Guthrie and National Avenue, and most of them are irregular shaped. They were described through meets and bounds a long time ago, before modern planning and zoning, and so it's kind of a mess at that corner. And the petitioner is looking to clean things up, to combine the 4 parcels nearest the corner into 1 parcel, and then the largest parcel to divide into 2, so that would create a new lot that would access Guthrie Road. The property is zoned A3. Normally, A3 requires a minimum lot size of 2 acres, an average width of 175 feet. With the proposed land combination and land division, the lot nearest the corner, the one where the 4 parcels are going to be combined, that's still only going to be 0.76 acres, lot 3. However, it's more conforming now than it was prior with the 4 scattered smaller lots, so that's okay. The buildings, there's 2 houses that were discussed that are near National Avenue. They're closer to the right-of-way than they should be. Normally, it's 50 required. They're only about 14 feet and 14 and a half feet from the right-of-way. That's not changing, so that isn't a factor here. One of the things that came up last time in discussion was the dividing line between what's being proposed as Lot 2 and Lot 3. We weren't sure if one of the existing houses and the garage was going to overlap that lot line. That wouldn't have been okay. We wouldn't have known that until the survey was done. That would not have been allowable. We'd have made the lot lines get adjusted to make sure that the house, even though it wouldn't meet the offset requirements that are normally required, but we wouldn't want to see it overlap the boundary. It's been proven that it does not overlap. My staff report mentions that the home is 3.9 feet from that west lot line. That's actually an error pointed out by the petitioner. That's the garage. The home is 4.3 feet from that west lot line. So just to clarify that, it doesn't make much of a difference, but it was an error in the report. The other thing we talked about that the conceptual meeting was the lot shape. The new lot New Lot 2 is a bit of a irregularly shaped parcel. Normally, we want to see rectangular shaped parcels, but because of the circumstances, that was something that was discussed with the Plan Commission conceptually last time, and the Plan Commission felt that was okay for Lot 2 to sort of touch National Avenue, touch Guthrie Road, and sort of an L-shaped lot. That was seen as okay. And then, as was mentioned, the last issue was the new creation of Lot 1 on the Guthrie Road. That is a county road, so at the time, we didn't know if the county was going to approve the new access point. Since then, the county has stated that they would approve that new access point. Obviously, once the CSM is created and the new lot is constructed, the new home, during the time that the new home would be constructed, they would need to get a driveway and access permit from Waukesha County, which is one of the conditions of approval. So that's all I have. There's a couple of minor comments that our surveyor had for cleanup. That can be cleaned up after approval if the Plan Commission and Board would choose to do so. I wouldn't have an issue with it. And so our recommendation, if the Plan Commission agrees, would be approval with a couple of conditions. One is that they'd satisfy any conditions of the Plan Commission, the Board, the planner, and the surveyor with regard to the certified survey map, that they obtain the appropriate permits from Waukesha County DPW Engineering for the driveway access for Lot 1 when the time comes, and then reimbursement of all invoices for the project. And that's all I have.
Sean, could you just go over, just to make sure the board understands, I know we beat it to death at the Plan Commission, but the Village Board, right now, there's non-conforming lots, and they're non-conforming because they don't conform to today, but it was, developed, as Sean said before, with Waukesha County, and under the law, the lots are all continue to be non-conforming, the ones on the triangle I'm talking about. But they're closer to conforming than they were before, so
Yeah,
we're permitted to do this.
that was 4 lots. They were all non-conforming. The structure was, non-conforming because of setbacks and so on. That new lot, Lot 3, is still non-conforming because it isn't at least 2 acres in size, which is required by the district. However, it's more conforming than it was, so that is allowed. You are allowed to do that without changing the zoning to something else. So yes, and the structures that exist in the properties are also going to continue to be legal nonconforming because they don't meet the setback and offset requirements that are required for A3, and that's okay too. But there are just certain rules that any additions or expansions would have to be conforming. You couldn't go closer to the lot lines. You couldn't go closer to the right of way with an addition, for instance. Anything you did to them would have to be conforming in nature. So that's they're tied, but there's nothing they can do about that.
Sean, on the north end of that triangle, there's a
A mound.
mound. I may have asked this back on the planning commission, I just don't remember. But it's overlapping into the dedicated roadway.
Correct.
Is-
There's nothing you can do about that. The mound is where it is. That roadway was expanded, and now the right of way has always existed, right? The right of way for Guthrie Road is what it is. They're just dedicating the right of way. And in actuality, I think it may have already been dedicated before this.
Yeah, I think.
And so nothing is changing there. It happens to be in the right of way, but there's nothing we can do about it. We're not going to force them to move it because nothing's changing as part of the CSM. It was in the right of way before. It's in the right of way now. And so that's an issue for the county because it's their right of way.
Okay.
Could be an issue if it ever needs to.
Could be an issue if the actual pavement would need to be expanded as such, but as of now, that's a 100-foot right of way. The pavement's nowhere near that, and so it's not currently a right of way. But that would be a discussion between the county and the property owner at some point in time, if and when they ever needed more right of way or more pavement, and it would impact it. But it's also a county issue for another reason, and that's because they handle all sanitary systems and the village does not. And so it's their right of way, it's their overview of a sanitary system as well.
Okay.
Sean, what what is the plan commission? They're approving it, or are they recommending?
They're recommending approval.
They're
correct,
recommending approval, okay.
with those 3 conditions.
Recommending approval with the 3 conditions, 1, 2, 3. One is satisfy all comments, including the surveyor's technical comments and the appropriate permits for the driveway access for lot 1, and of course, our standard, you know, you have to pay all your fees and so on.
Right. And right now, the only outstanding comments are the surveyor comments. I have no additional comments unless the plan commission board will have no additional comments. They just have to satisfy the surveyor's comments.
It should, you've seen the comments to your surveyor, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, is there any issues with any of those?
No, I've already contacted him and I informed him of what the comments were. His only question is that all?
That's all. Unless someone else has other comments or questions.
Okay, so plan commission.
I'd like to make a recommendation that the village plan commission approve the certified survey map as submitted with the 3 conditions as listed.
Okay, well, we're recommending approval to the village board, right?
Of the
Correct.
final
Of the,
Right.
right, with the 3 conditions, of course, listed in the FOTH report.
dated today's date?
Yeah, dated today's date or May 3rd date?
Yeah, May 3rd.
May 3rd date. May 3rd,
I'll
21.
second that motion.
Okay, discussion. I know we had lengthy discussions. He followed what was recommended before, so as Sean said. So, hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries the Plan Commission. Next on the agenda, because this is a joint meeting, the village board can take action. Again, this is a policy decision. You've heard the discussion, and so we'll open it up first for board members, not part of the Plan Commission, to raise questions or concerns or any other comments they would like to make. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to concur with the recommendation to approve the certified survey map with the 3 conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So once you have the updated CSM survey, just send it along. We'll take a quick peek at it, and then it can be signed and recorded.
Okay. So it's just I know you keep mentioning 3, but I.
Those 1 through, the 3 conditions are at the end, but it's those 5, those numbers 1 through 5 under surveyor comments.
Survey, or the survey.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Okay, next on the agenda, item 8, Luke and Rachel Henningston. There you go. Might want to pull up one more chair, thank you. So please state your name and address for the record.
Rachel Henningsen. Address, sorry, W250S8025 Center Drive. This is actually in regards to West 227, South 9365 Big Bend Drive.
And Lucas D. Henningsen of W250S8025 Center Drive in regards to W227S9365 Big Bend Drive.
Okay, this is for a site plan of operation. Sean, why don't you kick us off? This is I think the first time the Plan Commission has seen this.
Correct, thank you. The petitioners are looking to basically take over the existing greenhouse floral operation on Big Bend Road, Fox River Greenhouse. What they're requesting is site plan of operation approval to do so. This property was granted a conditional use by Waukesha County back in 1979. The conditional use was for a legal non-conforming conditional use, meaning the greenhouse was in business before that, but at the time that the property was split from the property to the southeast, they were looking for a sort of something that locked in the rights to the greenhouse. So it was operating, even though zoning didn't allow it, it existed before zoning, et cetera, et cetera. And so what the conditional use allowed them to do is to continue it as a legal non-conforming use. It basically said, hey, it's been here, we recognize it as conditional use. It's basically permitted now as a legal non-conforming conditional use because the zoning didn't allow it. The conditional use permit that was issued at the time by Waukesha County didn't have any specific conditions in it. It just simply said it's a greenhouse and floral shop. There was no provisions in it whatsoever that said it could not be transferred. And so basically, as such, it would just run with the land regardless of who owned the property at the time. They'd have the right to operate that greenhouse, provided it didn't go into discontinued use for a period of 12 months or more, which is a provision. If it sort of slips into non-use for that period of time, it would no longer be renewed. And so, to the best of my knowledge, that has never happened. And so it continues to operate as a legal non-conforming conditional use under that permit. Normally, what we do in this case, since we have our own zoning now and we are a village now, we request that the petitioner come in not only for a site plan of operation for a new user, a new buyer, but we'd say, well, you need to come in for a new conditional use permit under the village now because we have our own zoning. That was issued under the county, and it normally wouldn't be a problem. But there's a few reasons why that's not possible in this particular case. It's a complicated property. So one, the property is entirely within shoreline zoning. All right, and we just talked about shoreline zoning before. Now, we've just approved the adoption of shoreline zoning as a village, but it's not yet in place, right? It has to be, the ordinance have to be drafted, have to be enacted, and so that may take a month or more to get that in place. So right now, the property's still within county shoreline zoning, and it's under A2 district, right? Right now, their county A2 zoning does not allow greenhouses as a permitted use or a conditional use. Our zoning does. Our A2 zoning does allow greenhouses, landscaping, lawn care, garden businesses as a conditional use under A2, but those rules aren't in place yet until those ordinances are enacted. So that's one reason we can't just issue a conditional use permit for it, because we don't really have jurisdiction and the current zoning doesn't allow it. As I mentioned, we're currently adopting that. So at some point in time, it might meet that requirement. However, even once it's under village A2 zoning and we could consider a conditional use permit for that operation, we don't have anything in place that would allow a legal non-conforming use for a conditional use. So basically, we'd have to give them a conditional use permit only for a landscape business, greenhouse business, garden business, etc. We could do that. However, because of the fact it's legal non-conforming, because the lot's so small, because there's the setbacks and offsets, for instance, are so small, the requirements of our conditional use for that type of a thing are much larger. And so you need a lot of a certain size, you need setbacks and offsets of a certain size, and they couldn't meet that. The only way they could be granted a conditional use for this is to amend our code to add back in legal non-conforming conditional uses and allow them to go that path. So that's an option down the road. But for right now, they're just asking for a site plan of operation to continue the operation as is, under the county issued conditional use permit, because that's all we can do for now. Our hands are tied until we can add in language for a legal non-conforming conditional use to allow them to operate the greenhouse, floral shop, and then even potentially consider future expansions of other uses under that in the future. But we're not there yet because we don't have, the property's not in our jurisdiction to be able to do that yet. So that's something that could happen down the road.
But it doesn't necessarily have to happen.
No, it doesn't have to happen, but that's something that could happen.
But we're not required to do that.
We are not required to do that. There's no guarantee that would happen.
And maybe we're not.
And so I'll keep it very vague in general because I don't want to go into details, because discussion of conditional uses is quasi-judicial. It requires a public hearing, and all testimony has to happen within the public hearing setting. But I guess it's fair to say there are other things that the petitioner would like to do with the property without getting into any details whatsoever, and they'd like to go down the path of adding language back into the code that would allow that to happen, and then potentially seek a conditional use in the future without getting to any specifics, because we can't talk about the specifics now. So essentially, they want to operate the business as is today, and they've submitted a plan of operation and a marked up site plan that kind of shows where things are, because we don't have anything on record today in terms of what's out there, because the conditional use that was issued in 1979 didn't specify it. So their plan of operation is on page 2 of my staff report, and basically it's operation of a greenhouse and floral shop in accordance with the legal nonconforming conditional use permit, limited to the following. The main building on the site would be used for the floral plant shop, garage, and storage. The 85-foot by 90-foot area, including the 3 greenhouses that are marked on the plan, would be used for plant growing. The 12-foot by 80-foot greenhouse to be used for plant growing and storage as well. The 30-foot by 40-foot pole shed would be used for operations storage. The approximate 50 by 100-foot gravel area in front of the buildings would be used for customer parking, just like it is today. The approximate 60-foot by 70-foot gravel area in the rear of the buildings that currently exist would be used for employee and business parking, which would be limited to the operation of the greenhouse and the floral shop. And then there would be seasonal display in front of the greenhouses southeast of the customer parking lot, all just like it operates today. They'd have a maximum of 4 employees of full-time and then 2 part-time employees for seasonal help. They'd have company vehicles, which would be 3 trucks and then 1 van, again, which would be limited to the operation of the greenhouse and floral shop, and they're proposing the hours of operation Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I have discussed with the petitioners since I wrote the staff report about their hours of operation, and further defining what the seasonal hours would be, because right now we do know that the current operation is limited to certain times of the year where customers come in and buy products, and so we'll hear from the petitioner on that in a bit, and also the reason why they wouldn't be open on Sunday, because obviously during the season on the weekends is a important time and in a busy time when customers are looking to buy plant materials for their gardens and their homes and so on. So again, we'll hear more from the petitioner on that. They aren't proposing any new signage now. They would need to come in and get board approval for signage going forward. So that would be, if they were approved tonight for site plan of operation to continue, they'd be back for that sign. And so if this was approved, I do have a series of conditions. One is that plan of operation, as I mentioned, would be in effect unless it's modified tonight based on what the petitioners tell us. They'd be required to comply at all times with the plans and documents presented and the conditions set forth. They would be subject to satisfying any conditions that would come up tonight. Building inspection, fire inspection, and our basic standard conditions for any site plan approval, including reimbursement of expenses. So that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions for me or for the petitioners?
Sean, reading through this, my first question would be, okay, let me make a comment first. This is why we don't allow our conditional uses to be transferred, because we don't even know, this is legal non-conforming. It runs with the land. I don't know how much, I mean, any buyer could come in and say, well, we're going to do it exactly the same. The trouble is, I don't know what exactly the same means, because I don't know what's being permitted in the first place. And you said, well, there aren't any real rules. For example, the seasonal, what does this mean? May and June?
Right.
That's how the Fox River this is the Fox River Greenhouse, by the way, runs now, right? They open in May, close in June.
Yeah, I know. I would agree. We need more information from the petitioner and probably the current owner on the state of operations, what it is today, and what's going to be continued going forward, and is it the same? And I think that's important.
And then secondly, I don't want to create a misimpression or an impression that the existing operations continue, but there's no assurances whatsoever that any of our code is going to be changed to allow for any expansion of any business other than the exact one on that.
Correct.
And the exact business on it is legal non-conforming. It wouldn't even be allowed.
That's correct. That's correct. And so just to reiterate, to expand the uses here would require a change to our zoning ordinance to add in legal non-conforming uses as an allowable use. It was once in our code. We took it out because there weren't adequate conditions as part of it. So that'd have to be added in with adequate conditions. There'd also need to be language in there for legal nonconforming conditional uses that would allow us to consider expansion, because a lot of times it just locks in what's there. It's been done in other communities. You can do it. You can allow expansion of legal nonconforming uses to consider other uses with it. So that would be something that would have to be in there. And then finally, after that's in there, they would have to seek a conditional use permit under the provisions of that through public hearing. And so again, there's no guarantees because it all depends on the testimony that comes out of the public hearing of the zoning ordinance changes as well as the conditional use change. And I think the petitioner is aware of that, as I've tried to make it clear, is that there are no guarantees. If the site plan of operation is approved tonight or another night, that's all they get for now. There's no guarantees of anything going forward.
Questions for Sean before we hear from the petitioners?
I'd like to hear from them first.
Okay. Dan, do you have anything for Sean?
Currently, it's under the Waukesha County CU. Is that
Correct. That's correct.
Do we have the authority to approve site plan under that?
We do because, again, conditional uses, no matter what jurisdiction they're issued by, again, they run with the land unless they're terminated for whatever reason or they expire for lapse of use. And so that exists no matter what until we replace it with something else. And we have Waukesha County doesn't have the right to issue site plan plans of operation anymore because we are a village and we currently now administer their zoning ordinance. And we have our own site plan provisions as well.
Sean, help me understand this. Is this because of a change in ownership?
Correct. That is the sole change, that the current owner is looking to sell it to another buyer.
Okay. And you're saying that the conditional use goes with the land,
Correct.
no matter whether it
Unless there is something in it that said it doesn't, because what President Fortner had mentioned was that our current conditional uses that we issue based on our code have a requirement in there that says they're not transferable. Can't just transfer them over. The new buyer would need to come in and get another conditional use permit under the law at that time. When this was issued, there was nothing like that in the permit, and so it just carries forward.
and with the land.
With the land, now with the owner. Right. That's the courts have said basically, and I'm not an attorney, but Attorney Macy has opined this as well, is that the courts have said if it's silent on those things, it basically does run with the land.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll hear from the petitioners.
Could you speak? I know we talked a little bit through email over the last couple of days. Could you speak at all about the existing operation again? Because we only know what you tell us and what's out there, what's marked up on the site plan. Can you tell us a little bit more about the existing operation and how you plan to comply with operation in accordance with what's currently out there? Like, for instance, how many months of the year and what months of the year are you open to the general public, et cetera, and what your plan is going forward with that in that regard?
I mean, currently, right now, it is actually operational from January to December because they are, a growing.
For growing,
season that
right.
happens internally and then open to the public, typically around Mother's Day, and then it sells throughout the summer. However, there is, like mums for fall and trees for Christmas.
Could you get a little bit closer or move the mic a little bit
So
further?
there are seasonal sales that go along with that. Does that answer what you were asking?
So when you said seasonal sales, so you said Mother's Day throughout the summer is typical, and then seasonal sales in the fall and at other times?
Yeah. So I don't know if it might be more beneficial.
That would be helpful if the existing owner is here to give us a sort of an idea of.
Do you maybe want to swap out with Dwayne?
Yes, sir. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Dwayne Engel, W227S9365, Big Bend Drive, which is Highway 164, Big Bend, Wisconsin, Post Office 53103. Anybody remember Sterling Peck? There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Sterling Peck, I bought the property from Holtz's back in 1979, moved in on January 1st of 1980. And bought the greenhouse operation with expectations of doing well in the world, and I've done very well in the world. I'm very happy with it. And I've heard from a number of people that have been to my establishment over the course of time that this is one of the best kept secrets in our little community here, because we haven't had any complaints or issues with how I've operated, and we try not to make a big thing out of it, and we're not trying to build something that's not suitable for the site. We want to keep it in conformity with the way it's been, and not looking to make any great shakes in the world. But I just turned 65 last year, and I'm looking to pass the property on to some new owners that have some young blood, some new motivation, and the property that I have now is going to need some work, and they're willing to put that into it to make it a better situation for the town and make everything a little bit better. They want to operate in the same manner that I've been operating, and I wish them luck, and I hope that we get approval on this, because like I say, they're not trying to do anything that's out of sorts with the way we've been operating in the past.
So let's go through how you've been operating in the past.
Sure.
Have you seen Sean's report? On page 2, it has a plan of operation. I would just like to compare that plan of operation as proposed to how you're presently operating, or have been since 1980.
I've not had any complaints of, trucks or, this or that or whatever.
How many trucks do you have?
I've got a couple of trucks. I mean, I've had probably as many as 3 trucks on the property at one time, a couple pickup trucks, a dump truck, which none of this is anybody, are you familiar with my property? I don't know. Okay. You don't see anything right from Highway 164 off the road. You see the front greenhouse, and I try to keep it looking rather nice or whatever back there, but anything in the back you really don't see. And it's not like if you had vehicles parked that they'd be visible right from the roadside where you'd need some kind of screening or whatever. It's all, the lay of the land goes back down to the river, and like I say, it wasn't, I'll park a couple trailers. I have, some people, they'll park their boat there during the winter time, for storage, and then they take it out in spring. But it's nothing, it's not a situation where I'm trying to, rent lot space out or whatever for people with vehicles and what have you. So.
Well, just so you know, your permit doesn't allow that, but.
Probably not. No one's ever complained about it, and I'm not looking to create any waves here, in that situation. And like I say, if there'd been some issues with people, my neighbors or anyone raising a question about that, I certainly would have taken action on that situation and said, no, you can't do this. So it's pretty low key is what I'm trying to say.
How many employees do you typically have?
Myself?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
now
yes.
presently?
Yeah, yes.
I've got myself and several other people that help on a part-time basis. I don't do as much of the greenhouse operation as what the Henningsens plan to do. I think they're going to be increasing that a bit, but I don't think that's going to make a whole lot of difference in the operation, because they want to extend it and perhaps, as Rachel had said here, sell some mums or something like that in the fall, or wreaths, or I don't know. They're looking to improve the whole building from the front, the facade, and make it, just a nice small operation that's, maybe a little bit longer in the season than what I run it.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is, we have to be concerned about, for example, employee parking, right, John? We need to know how many employees.
Correct. We have to know if the site can accommodate it, and obviously there's a spot in the back of the property. But if you'd come in and said, "Hey, we have 50 employees," well,
yeah,
that would be a concern.
I don't think the Henningsens are looking to overwork the site or to try to maximize every square foot of the area that's there. They've been through it. They know what it's all about, and I think they've got the right idea and the direction that they want to go, and it's not that it's going to be an issue or that even these vehicles are going to be visible to anybody. It's not like you're going to have a big, if I'm lucky, if I can get 6 or 8 cars in my front parking lot at any time, okay? And the rest of the parking and stuff, that occurs in the back. So no one even sees that, it's not.
Sure. So what months of the year do you sell to retail customers?
Right now, I'm currently selling, I usually sell for May and June. I'm gonna say those are my two primary months. And Henningsen's perhaps are gonna be, growing plant material for sales to other operations, or like I say, if they decide that they're gonna do some fall mums and wanna grow things in that manner, or poinsettia plants, that would be up to them, which would, again, seasonally increase, the amount of sales, because that is what the greenhouse is all about.
Well, we're trying to establish what your present operations, because that's what's grandfathered. So, I'm a little bit concerned about expanding the use.
So maybe I just chime in here. So there's a legal nonconforming conditional use for a greenhouse floral shop. That's all the information that we have under the county permit. And so that allows a greenhouse and floral shop operation. And so we can't expand the use to something else,
Right.
besides greenhouse floral. But whether they want to be open another month of the year or do something in the fall, I don't know if that would constitute an expansion of the use itself. It's, extended hours of operation or other things, but I don't think that goes against the spirit and the intent of a greenhouse floral operation, legal nonconforming conditional use. We wouldn't allow them to do auto sales on the property, or even storage on the property, because that would be an expansion of the use. But if it's operating generally consistent with the current operation, but a few different hours or another month out of the year, as long as everyone thought it wouldn't be a problem with the community and it wouldn't be an adverse impact to the community to be open in July as well, then I'm not sure I would have a problem with it. But a major expansion to some other use would certainly be an issue without modifying the conditional use.
Well, obviously, the concern is traffic and parking and.
100%. But
and
if
all of
they
that.
have one
So
more employee, for instance, than
That's
he
not gonna
currently
matter.
has,
Right.
not a big deal.
Not a big deal
If I can
there.
interject here, back when I bought the place back in 1980, the flower shop ran for 12 months out of the year. And I tried operating the flower shop probably for about, I'm going to say, a good 3, maybe 4 years. And at that time in Big Bend, we had the Log Cabin Floral, and there was also Thinking of You Floral that's up at the corner kitty corner from the mobile station now. Vernon / Big Bend had 3 florists at one time, okay? And it just didn't seem to be working out. But, with getting the operational use, extending my time period here, the floral shop, like I say, it ran 12 months out of the year. And I'm a little bit more seasonal now, and they're looking to expand on that. And with the amount of traffic, we're not trying to create a Stein's Garden Center or anything here. That's not the issue. No one's looking to do that. And we want to keep it low key, the way it's been, not make any great shakes in the world, but just I want to pass this on to somebody who's got some good incentive to want to make it a better place for the village.
So besides retail customers, do you sell wholesale as well?
Oh yeah, I sell wholesale. I sell wholesale to other vendors that I do business with and such over the course of time. But it's not my primary thing is the retail outlet. But again, it's limited by the parking that I have in front, and
Right.
I have never encouraged people to park out on the road or anything. I discourage that. I say no. If you can't fit in the lot here or whatever,
Don't
you have
show
to come
up.
back another time.
Right.
We're not that kind of operation.
Right. So what months of the year do you sell wholesale?
When I'm not selling the retail stuff. I'll be growing a few things in the back there for other people, like some of these mums or whatever, but I just don't take the time myself because I'm not there all the time to be able to do that.
Sure. And wholesale is probably less of a concern than retail traffic and overcrowding. But they currently sell retail and wholesale, and I assume you plan to do the same thing.
And I should state for the record, I did check with the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department that there has never been an issue ever since, even when the Holtzes, there's no record of any parking violations at all.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're not here to investigate your record. This is why our current ordinances say the new owners have to come in because, basically they're stepping in your shoes. So
Yeah. They seem like
just
very
because
good
you've
people.
been a
They're-
great,
it's a family operation. They live in the town here or in the village, and I'm lucky to have found them to be prospective buyers for my place. They would expect me to mentor them in. I'm going to be for a year or two to make sure that things, transition goes smoothly for them. And that's all we want to do. If their business should get to the point, I feel from my conversations with them, that they would outgrow this site, they can do what they're doing now and rent some other land or get another place that's more in conformity with what their needs would be at that time. But right now, they're not looking to, jam too much stuff into the situation and create a problem or traffic conditions that would, no, not at all.
So you grow all year, or pretty much all year, I would
Yes.
assume. You sell wholesale all year as your customers are needed. You sell retail May and June.
Correct.
Okay.
If they wanted to put like a little garden stand up in the front there, which I don't know that they do, or, decide that they want to sell some Christmas wreaths or the fall mums, it's basically doing the same thing I have for another month or two out of the year, and you're not really increasing road traffic, or, you're not trying to corner the market on the whole retail operation thing. It's just, if they're there, operating, whatever they do, then it's an incentive for them to be able to have some sales.
I'm not so sure that what you just said is correct. I mean, if they're grandfathered for certain operations, what you're suggesting is, well, they could do this, they could do that. I'm not sure that what you're saying is correct, because you don't do that now.
Right, but the business has changed over the years since you've done certain things at certain times and tried different things over the years. Again, I just want to say that the permit was for a legal non-conforming greenhouse and floral shop, and so he's probably done sales at different months of the year. He's sold different items and tried different items. And so it's probably fluctuated over time. I'm not saying it's been exactly this since the permit was issued in 1979. The business has not been exactly the same the whole time. I can guarantee.
Well, I assume it isn't, but how does the 12-month rule
No.
fit in there then?
No, all I'm saying is that we probably should try to pin down the retail sales to some amount, whether it's May, June, and July, and then a seasonal in the fall and the winter for a month or two, rather than we should try to define it in some respect as part of the permit if it's issued.
What were your hours? What are your retail hours of operations existing?
Currently now?
Yes.
Usually from 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening. 7 days a week. And if it rains on Memorial Day, then, we go a little bit longer or something. So much of it is weather related in the business.
And so their proposed hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So they're open a little earlier, and then they stay open a little later.
Yeah, there's not that many people, that are interested in coming in at 7 o'clock in the morning, but if they, need to be operational with vehicles going in, I mean, there's many times I go in and out at 7 o'clock and no one, there's no issue. It's not like you got, 14 trucks coming in or something.
Well, we're trying to distinguish between operating the greenhouse, the growing of the business,
And the retail portion.
and the retail part. To me, those are separate items. I mean, you could run a greenhouse completely commercial, no retail. And we do have greenhouses like that in Vernon.
Edgewood.
Right,
Yeah.
Edgewood, yeah.
Sure.
Or you could run a greenhouse, quote unquote greenhouse, where you grow very minor things, but it's mostly retail. So
That's correct. So I guess we'd like to pin down what hours of operation do you need for retail, and what hours of operation do you need for the behind-the-scenes operation?
I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Sure. So we'd like to have it start in May, because obviously Mother's Day, and that's a really prime time to be selling the flowers. And then probably continue through summer, because people are continuing to plant and add color to their beds. So I guess I would be proposing through September, which would allow us to also take care of the mums with the fall colors. Actually, can I?
Or if you grow some poinsettias, you may want to even
Yeah.
do that.
So actually, I'd like to, I would like to do whatever is allowed to obviously stay within those parameters, but just with the hopes of you guys understanding it is a greenhouse, so like it is flowers, and there's so much work that goes into behind the scenes with watering. When you say, retail needs to start at 8, we start with watering at 7 in the morning, so the aisles are clean, so you can't be dragging a hose and watering when you have customers in your area. So there's those little things that kind of go into play, where I think just saying retail.
So is 7 to 8 p.m. That's your behind the scenes stuff. So when will you be open to the public?
Sure. I would say probably the 8 to 6 would be great because then that gets the early birds and then that also gets the people after work.
Yeah, there's not many people come in after that. There's not many people before that.
How about Sunday hours for retail?
That was my mistake. I didn't really take that into consideration because I'm new to this. So we would like to request this Sunday because
7 days a week for retail.
Yeah.
And obviously the Sunday would also be behind the scenes operation as well. If you're going to be there
Along with the
anyways.
retail,
Yes.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on the proposed May through September?
Yeah, I don't know what the, it is an expansion, but I'm not sure where the line is on what that all means. I can't.
So again,
can't
I
get my-
think the use itself isn't really being expanded, right? It's still a greenhouse, it's still a floral shop.
Right,
They just happen to be selling for longer. And honestly, we wouldn't have known or had any purview over whether or not the existing owner would have done that anyways. He could have been selling, if he decided to sell poinsettias over Christmas, it'd have been fine because he was approved for a greenhouse and floral shop to sell flowers and plants.
One thing I would like to add, and no disrespect to Dwayne, but he is a lot older. Like I mean, we had conversations. He's like, I'm done. I don't want to be sitting here all stinking watering plants and dealing with customers where I feel like we have that in us right now. We're not burnt out like Dwayne maybe. So, which leads me to we would be, selling more and doing more than probably what Dwayne did at the very beginning. And maybe when we're in our 60s, we will be passing
You'll be
it
sitting
on
here
and
again 40 years later
right,
from now
pushing it
talking
off
the
to
new
somebody
board.
else.
Yeah.
So I'm not changing anything other than I would really love to utilize the greenhouse.
One thing I'd like to add is that we are a family business. Dwayne is at the age that he's in. We have a little bit of a legacy within us. It would be passed down to our kids. Like Rachel was saying, we do have a little more energy. I am in the military, or from the military, so I like to wake up a little bit earlier and get operations going. If Mr. President was talking about the compliance to certain things, we're very familiar with complying too. We have a little bit of a history. And if there was ever an issue, we know how to get back into compliance. We're not trying to create any waves within the community. We're really just trying to add to it.
what kind of business do you operate now? Don't you operate a landscaping business now?
We have a landscape division, which we rent space for off-site. They take care of landscape items, but this is not the location for that. This is a very specific location for greenhousery.
And some of your growing would be for supplying your landscape business?
Yeah, potentially. There's so much use with the greenhouse space that they have there. We want to take advantage of that because it's a very useful property. It's got a lot of history, and it's one thing that we want to be able to hand down to our kids too.
And I don't know if you mentioned, but our kids work for us too. We have 2 teenage son and daughter, 20 and 18. So they're very much involved. And when we say 4 employees, that's literally us 2 plus them. And then we would have the 2 seasonal because, Dwayne says, when it's go time for retail, people are coming in Mother's Day, Father's Day, like all hands on deck. So that is like the extent. It would be family-based. I'm definitely not looking to be like a Steins.
I've been asking a bunch of questions. Dan, Jim, got questions? Or board?
Either side are residential properties.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
It is. Yeah, and it's been there. You've owned it for what, 21 plus 42 years, 40 years, and then before that, how long did it exist before that?
How long did the whole stand?
Well, the barn in the back was built in 1943,
Right.
So when, I'm guessing the early 40s
Before zoning, because that's the reason for the legal non-conforming conditional
Right.
use permit.
Folks used to own up and down that river there, and they offered me the, the one parcel to the north at the time, but, when I got in there in 1980, I mean, I just couldn't afford that, which is why I would have taken, all the parcels to begin with, but it just wasn't part of my financial package at that time to be able to swing it.
Well, my biggest concerns are we don't know exactly legally what we are required to grant them. I don't want to expand what is legal non-conforming use necessarily, particularly at this stage. So that's why I was asking the questions on what is exactly the operations today, and I'm not sure, Sean, I don't know what the answer is either, that's why I ask it. I think the growing operations, I understand that. The retail, I'm a little bit, when the retail is currently running and has been for, I don't know how many years, May and June, and now it's proposed May through, I guess, September 30. That is more retail, so more traffic from the public coming in and out as opposed to a growing operation,
It's
so.
a small lot, you can't get many cars in there, and I mean, Karen pointed out, we've never had a traffic accident there. I mean, there's been more people before they put the bypass lane at Henneberry Avenue there.
I'm concerned about the neighbors. It's in the residential area. You're going to have more traffic coming in and out throughout the year. That's the point.
Sure.
Okay.
And if we checked with the neighbors and got their approval on that, would that make matters better then? I'm wondering if that would be helpful.
What were the hours of the retail operation before, and how did that operate?
Pretty much the same. Like I say, I mean, I open at 8 o'clock in the morning, and like now, 6 o'clock, and tonight I have to go back and cover plants yet before it gets too dark, because we may get another frost tonight. So
But you don't
Mine
do
are
much
covered.
retail there in the floral shop there, is that?
the retail there, I mean, it dies down after 6 o'clock. I mean,
But,
people might
you
come
know,
on their way home and whatever,
In the past, there was a greater retail operation there.
not necessarily. No.
When Holtz's owned it, or,
No, I
no?
don't think so. I mean, they had pretty much standard hours like I think I do. I'm guessing. I don't know. I wasn't there for their.
Dwayne, I think he's asking, when the Holtzes had it, was it more busy because they were utilizing the florist and the greenhouse?
Hard to say. I mean, before
Yeah.
I bought it, I didn't really know what their traffic was. They were able to fit all their people up in the front parking lot, and there was only a half a dozen cars there at any one time, from my knowledge.
Karen, have we ever had any complaints on the property itself?
No, not one complaint on this property, but I can tell you the neighbors to the south that live closer to Papa Stash, boy, they have a lot of complaints. Yeah, they have a
Right.
lot of
Yes,
complaints.
we know
there.
where that
But
is.
never, and I looked in the file and there's no complaints whatsoever.
Okay. In my opinion, I don't see an expansion of the use of this property. The buildings are there. They can only grow so many plants in these buildings, and the retail space is limited. If they were proposing an expansion of a building, that would be different, but
Well, the hours of the retail, they just stated they're going to be the same. The only expansion on the retail hours would be the days they're open.
Additional months. right.
Additional months. That would be the only expansion that I could see on any
I
of
wouldn't
this.
even limit it to the months that have been listed.
We are not interested in expansion of any of the buildings.
Right,
ever.
right, but-
Right.
It's prime the way that it is, and we want to keep it that way.
But if they were open year-round, I don't think it would make much difference.
There's only going to be as much traffic as the parking lot can support. Right.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very
cool.
cozy.
I've heard it many times that it's a nice little place to come and visit, and they're glad I was open for another spring here, and they hope to see it, and I said, well, maybe if this gets passed on, I'll be here next year as well, until I can mentor these people into the operation, and then fade out of the picture slowly.
Jim, you had,
Well, no, I just wanted to say that I would concur with Dan. I don't see it being an expansion of operations. It's a greenhouse. You put stuff in, you grow it, you sell it, hopefully. I mean, that's, to me, I don't have an issue with that. my biggest concern is, I'd be in favor of approving whatever we're gonna approve today, the site plan, thank you. But I don't wanna get your hopes up if there's a potential that down the road, we'd say, well, yeah, we were just kidding, we can't do that, because we don't wanna change the ordinance or something. I don't know that there's a likelihood that we would say, that we would potentially change our mind, but I think I've seen, not necessarily this board, but I've seen town of Vernon boards do that, and I know how I felt about that. I think that's just the wrong thing. I'd like to, before we approve anything, I'd like to know that, barring any unforeseen information that might come out, through the normal process, that we're not going to back off of the thing. I just don't think that's right.
What do you mean by back off? I guess I'm
what
not
you
quite
said
following.
earlier, what you said earlier was, we may not change that ordinance to allow legal nonconforming, as an example, into it. I don't know how big of a deal that is or what the, potential for that really is.
But we haven't seen any of the proposed, and I'm not going to get into specifics again, but
Right.
what, if they plan to expand or do other things with the property, we don't know what they are yet. It requires a public hearing. We don't know what the testimony is going to be. We don't know what neighbor is going to show up. We can't give them a guarantee either way. It's not I don't want to say roll of the dice, except it kind of is, because we haven't seen any specifics yet. We don't even know what it will entail.
But only if they want to expand.
Only if they want to expand.
What they're asking for today is perfectly legal and no one.
Greenhouse operation.
Right.
Go on for as long as they want.
Right, and that's all I'm hearing, so I don't see why there would be even with just that, are we saying that we would have to still go into our ordinance and change it?
No.
Not for what they're asking today, no.
No.
Okay.
What I was concerned about, just to be clear, concerned about, two things. One is, it's grandfathered in, and I was trying to get my arms around, or what exactly was being grandfathered, and we heard from two of the Plan Commission members that an expansion of retail hours for July and August and September would not be an expansion of current use, as in your views. The hours of operation, they stated would be the same. for retail, 8 a.m. to 6
Right.
p.m. For operations, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.,
Correct.
right? And that would include Sunday because,
Correct.
on both retail and growing operations. So that sounds more consistent with what is going on, the 2 to 3 trucks. They want 3 trucks, that sounds consistent. The number of employees sounds consistent. So the only thing I saw as an expanded was just the retail into the July, August, and September. That's the only thing that I saw on the expansion. So, sir, they said through September, okay?
Okay, well, I'm just trying to make that clear now that no one would come back and say, oh, well, you're selling wreaths here and it's October,
But if their plan of operation says they can sell retail through September 30, that's what their plan of operation is being approved for.
And when I had the flower shop, they sold 12 months out of the year. If there were funerals,
And how long ago was that?
that was back when I first got the place in 1980.
And so how long did it continue?
I continued that operation for 3 or 4 years. I forget exactly.
Okay, so it's not been, you haven't been doing that since 1985.
That is correct. It's been a
Okay,
long time
okay,
since I've been doing that.
okay.
Could I make a request to operate it with retail all year round? So I guess I would like to ask that we have it January through December. There's so many plants for different seasons, and I feel like I'm really hindering us if I say September 30th. Because as Dwayne is saying, we have mums. I guess I didn't take that into consideration with October and November. Then we have the poinsettias at the end of November, December. So if I may, I would actually prefer that we are able to retail all through the seasons and months.
The sales are also based off of a product that has to grow and yield a positive material. So it's not like we have something off of a shelf that has a shelf life, it stays there. It is definitely based off of the health and the how well the yield is. So we're not pulling in constant retail activity, and nor do we want to. We want it to remain small. We can't compete with Stein's, but we can stay small, community-based company that still has the attraction for when the yield is there, when the crop is, if you will.
Well, okay, go ahead.
So I just want to make a point again for clarity. Again, historically, he's operated May and June, but at any point he could have opened in December and he would have been allowed to do so. So, again, this is a bit of a gray area in terms of expansion of use, but it doesn't fundamentally change the use in terms of it's a greenhouse floral shop that does retail sales and wholesale sales.
Let me ask you this. If you buy from another grower and put that in your retail shop, certainly you can do that now. You probably have done that. Sure, of course. So it's not, the retail operations are not limited to what
What
is
you
grown
grow.
on site.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to, that's what I
Yeah.
figured the answer was.
That's right.
And Sean, in his plan of operation, I don't see anything for months of the year.
No, it's not. And this just came up in discussions since I wrote my staff report, talking a little bit, talking this through, and then seeing that they missed the Sunday. And so clearly it just was missed in terms of the separation between retail and wholesale. And so,
Have we done that to any other CU in the city or in the village, limiting to certain months out of a year?
no, but this is an unusual circumstance because it's a legal non-conforming use and we have to respect
Right,
the existing operation in some capacity.
right. This would not be allowed under our current ordinances. That's
You
my
couldn't
issue
build
with
this
all
today
of
and
this.
operate this today under the current ordinances, right?
No, they're not proposing to build it today.
Right,
So
right.
Right, so that's why we have to stick with what we
And
have.
there are some protections granted under the conditional use. That's why it was granted in the first place as a legal non-conforming use to build in those protections. It's the banks require it sometimes if you have a legal non-conforming use and to protect the investment.
Right.
So it's really the debate over whether or not the expanded sales, because the current owner doesn't currently sell, all year round. Does it fundamentally change the use? Does it expand the use to allow them sales during any month? We know the hours have not been expanded. The hours are the same. The employees are essentially the same. Company vehicles are essentially the same.
Right.
I was just going to ask, are you expecting to, you're not selling mulch or landscape stone or anything like that? So there won't be any other truck deliveries?
No.
No, but for clarity, they have another business, and they'd be providing plant material to that other business, and so those trucks would come from time to time. They wouldn't be stored there, equipment wouldn't be kept there, landscape materials wouldn't be kept there, but those trucks might come in, pick up plants, and then leave. That's how I understand you would work the operation under this current approval.
Correct.
And again, it's listed that way. The company vehicles, 3 trucks and 1 van, limited to the operation of the greenhouse and floral shop. So you couldn't just store your landscape vehicles there.
How do we determine the number of parking spaces required here, Sean?
We don't, and because it's an existing use and it's basically grandfathered in through legal non-conforming. They say they have 4 employees. There's only enough parking for what it is out front, and so it's 6 customers, and really that's all we can do. And right. If we went through the calculations in the code, yeah, it's going to be different, but it's because it's an existing legal non-conforming use. Our hands are tied in terms of.
Right, it's a gravel parking lot.
There's
no
plenty
lines.
of parking in back for employees, clearly, and the parking lot in front is only as big as it is.
Right.
Okay, so that was one of the things I wanted to get, and I'm glad we had the conversation because it's changed. from what Sean put down on paper.
Right.
Right? The hours of operation, we've separated retail from operations, Sunday hours, and
Yeah.
12 months of possible retail as opposed to 2. Part of this too is you don't want to have one of your neighbors bring legal action against you and say you violated. He doesn't get to operate in July, August, and September because the prior owner did May and June. I don't know what that's a legal question. I don't know what the answer to that is. Sean, you think it's okay. That's fine, but that's the only legal issue in my mind right now.
I think it's gray.
Okay.
I think it's a gray area, and I don't think it's a substantial expansion. Like I said, it's different if they changed the use entirely or added a different use in there that's never been on the site.
I just don't want Vernon to get bogged down in another dispute.
I know what you're saying, and I can't provide legal advice if that's what you're asking.
Right.
So
All
I
we can ask you is your practical experience.
planning experience, and that's
Yeah.
all I can tell you. Yeah.
Right.
I can't imagine the negative PR that would bring us. I'm not really interested in creating waves, but if something like that were to arise, we would try to deal with it as much as possible at the lowest level, or at least comply.
Right. And then the other issue, I think Trustee Commissioner Slani was getting into is it is a legal non-conforming use. To make it a legal conforming use, it would take a change of our ordinances. And what I was stating is we can't make any assurances whatsoever they're going to get changed. And so if what Trustee, and I wasn't following, Jim, I wasn't really following your point exactly, what you were trying to say. If you're saying that, oh yeah, we're going to be amenable to do that, I don't know if we can even make that assurances at this point. And if, what I don't want to see you in purchasing this property, and then, well, there is going to be no expansion for landscaping or anything else. It's just what you receive here tonight. You got to be able to live with it in your purchase price because there might not be anything more, was my point.
Right.
And we're good with that.
It's a valid point, and it's understood.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you were indicating too, I think.
Yeah, we have to go through the process to figure out what the results are going to be. We can't. They're not predetermined. It's a public hearing process.
What we heard today, I would have no problems approving.
The existing operations that we hear today.
Yes,
Right.
which is all that's all they've talked about.
Right.
That's right.
But it bothered me that you said we might, and it sounded like you said we'd have to change our ordinance to allow them to do that.
No, not what they're proposing today, other than the one gray area.
That was the clarification
Okay,
that I
sorry
needed.
about that,
Yeah.
if I wasn't
Yeah.
being clear. That's what I
Yeah.
was trying to do.
We have to change the ordinance to allow them some
Right.
fundamental expansion of the use.
Sure.
Right.
And they're not asking for that. So.
Right. And again, they are asking for increased sales hours, but that just happens to be different than what's currently the owner currently uses, but he'd have every right to sell in December now if he wanted to.
Right. So let's get her done.
Okay.
So my conditions.
We talked a lot of stuff, so you got to be able to,
What I've changed, if you look at my recommendations, starting on bottom of page 2, I've changed a couple things. One is 1A, uses and activities. I clarified operation of a greenhouse and floral shop, and I've added for wholesale and retail sales in accordance with existing legal nonconforming. So I added wholesale and retail sales. And then the only other thing I changed was under the next page, under
oh, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong page.
letter 1D, the hours of operation. Now it's 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for operations, 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for retail. And then we're not adding anything additional. At least the latest that I have is no additional months, limited to certain months of the year. It's wide open. So that's what's currently on the table.
Okay, so where did you put wholesale and retail on 1A?
Under 1A, operation of a greenhouse and floral shop for wholesale and retail sales.
Okay,
And then 1D was the change in hours of operation. Defining the hours, yeah.
right. Well, it's a site plan and plan of operation. That's plan of operation, right? The hours.
That's right, yeah. And when I said changing, I mean changing from what they had in their original proposal.
In the
Right.
site plan, the actual, that stays the same.
That stays the same.
Site
That's
plan stays the
that's
same.
defined on the. It's listed in my report or plans of operation, which coincides with the marked up aerial photograph that they depict the existing buildings and so on.
Did we get any written comments, emails, calls about this from the? from-
None
from,
whatsoever.
Okay. Did anybody here in the audience, neighbors or anything? No. Okay, okay. And did they receive notice of anything?
The only thing is, Vince said a Peterson called him asking about a public hearing. Excuse me, and I explained there was no public hearing.
Are we planning on selling more than just potted plants? Things like they're selling nursery stock, like trees and shrubs, or nothing like that?
Well, there is currently trees in the back. And I guess when you say potted plants, there's also flats and there's herbs and vegetables. And is that what you're asking?
Basically, that's what you sell.
I think maybe what you're getting at, do they want to expand into like nursery stock items for sale and stuff? I don't think that's their objective.
No trees and shrubs.
No.
No, that requires more space area and everything. Like I said, they gotta use the property, it's a small enough property that you just don't have the room for, or just, you brought up, it's not gonna be that you're getting quad axle truckloads of mulch or big semi trucks, no. We're not looking to change.
More small scale plants and shrubs. Does that answer that?
Other questions from the plan commission or board? I'm just reviewing this one more time while we're talking, so.
I have a comment.
Sure, go right ahead.
Mr. Engel, I just want to let you know that I bought several plants from you in the past. Loved the quality, and they were always better than big box stores, so I appreciate the local businesses
Well, I hope they
and the
keep me on
Um,
quality.
for a little while so I can show them how to do the same.
And I think we should support our local businesses and make sure that we have more of these small operations and small businesses to compete against.
Yeah, no, and I
big
think we
box stores.
totally understand that, we're not trying to, I think the way I see it is that Vernon wants to get the business area up off of National Avenue there and, 164 and that's rightfully so, but this is such a little out of the way place or whatever with the little country flavor, and it's not that you're gonna put parking lights in there for people at night coming in there, we're not looking to upgrade any kind of situation of that nature.
Thank you for your support.
Mr. President, I did want to state for the record that this is somewhat not off the subject. I just wanted to state the caliber of the Henningsons. When I put out a thing on Facebook about an elderly person needing snow shoveling, Mr. and Mrs. Henningson called right away to volunteer to do that, for the community. So, I mean, that's the caliber of people you have sitting there.
Yes, Marie.
Yes, number one, I'd like to thank you for your service. And I agree with Dan 100% that small businesses should go, and I'm all for it. So I commend you for doing it. It's going to be a lot of work, but hang in there.
Okay, other questions, comments? Otherwise, we'll go to Plan Commission action, which would be, perhaps be, Sean, you've got it in here, if a recommendation to the Village of Vernon Board approval of the site plan of operation, as set forth and as modified at tonight's meeting.
I will so move.
Is there a second? Further discuss, this is Plan Commission, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so now, next up is the village board action. You've heard the discussion and recommendation. This is why we have joint meetings. And so if the board is so inclined to have a motion to concur with the, concur with the Plan Commission to approve the site plan and plan of operation as set forth and as changed at tonight's hearing.
I make that motion.
Discussion by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that wasn't so bad, was it? All right, so item 10 is for an accessory building. The village board, under our ordinances, does not need to approve this. This is a plan commission issue. So if the village board is so inclined, they could make a motion to adjourn the village board. Is there a second? All in favor? This is village board to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Village board is adjourned. Plan commission, should we take 5 minutes? 5-minute recess, and not to hold the next people up here, but
Keep the hot pepper.
Oh, yeah, we got,
The Reapers.
oh, yeah, we got the Reapers.
All right, I'll be in.
We got the Hollies, we got.
I'll be in.
Good luck.
Good night.
try to do our best, trying to avoid problems. For both them and us.
Yeah.
And I gotta stand up. You're gonna get
Hey, how was the Pee Wee soccer? Did your grandkids win? Isn't that
That was our
cute?
neighbor's kid.
Oh, was it? Yeah. I used to coach that a couple
I
years
would not
ago.
have the patience.
My grandkids were like, come on, let's run. Or
Her kid, every time the ball started being kicked, he'd go hang on the goal. I'm like,
I can step out.
Like, so everything was so negative.
Yes, it started to get irritated.
I mean, the legal side of it is extremely important.
Good night, Marie. You saw the email I sent you?
Thank you very much.
Marie,
Say again,
you saw the email?
all those attachments?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I did.
whoops, someone left their phone.
Make copies.
Uh-oh. Maybe they're still up there?
The legal side is extremely important. But yet,
Yes, but they weren't asking for that.
right,
That's a part that,
it didn't seem like through this stuff. It seemed like
right, I didn't, that's the thing, I thought that one would have been a no-brainer. But it's been in business that way for ever.
always liked how he had all his flowers out, like,
Yeah.
out there in the front. Always nice. All right. I'm up here.
Take care. Not too bad.
I think that was laying there. What is it for?
It's purple.
Yeah.
Dunham Sports, at any when you drop. It says one free dance, no.
I didn't know they came free seats.
It's high tech now. So Sean, you're gonna email me the new planner? You did? Good. I'm gonna email those ordinances to Macy tonight, see how fast he gets. Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna have too many comments on the
Honest to God, in fact, I got another email from another guy, like, on floodplain, they wanna go through the maps. Yeah, I included you in on those emails. Maybe you're gonna. Is that out there from Waukesha?
Well, yeah, Waukesha is clear.
Right. I wouldn't even at SDF. Dan, when we go through these floodplain maps, if you wouldn't mind coming. It's there, I asked Gordon to give me that terrible statement, the ones that affected Vernon. I mean, I care about every community, but I really care about. Of course, yeah. So, he gave me the ones just for Vernon, I gave those to, Carl, but I also wanted to give them to Dan because there's certain areas, especially his, when he went to get his shed permit. And I'm sure she knows. So we gotta work with and, Silverback is in the process of redefining a lot of those maps right now. Right, and some of the, some of the full plans. You should have been on the same. But have you heard that? Doing something? I'll find out who. Christine, the guys in that group.
They might be working.
Where do you go?
That's it, huh?
We're down now.
Yeah, some.
This is now we can have a real meeting.
Deal them out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's why the last email sent to Mike and to Brandon. I don't know what they're.
We'll see what they think.
Right. That's so good.
Ready to go back in?
We're in the middle of.
Okay. Our 5-minute recess is over. We're back. At Plan Commission, the village board has adjourned. Item 10 is a waiver for location of an accessory building for Randy Wagner for the property located at S86W24805 Stonehill Court in Vernon, of course. This is a Plan Commission action only. Our attorneys, everyone has the attorney comments that we have approved. Sean, we'll get to you in a minute. We have approved variances from our accessory building ordinance typically for size. I'm not sure about location, and this is for location as opposed to size. Obviously, well, maybe not so obviously, but the Plan Commission should be mindful of setting precedent. And so we should make sure that, in my view, make sure that if we are so inclined to grant an exception, to articulate the reasons why, so as to not create undue precedent, because I have a big front yard personally, and if this is going to be granted, I'll put one in my front yard. So, Sean, why don't you tee us up, and we'll have first of all, let's have the Wagners introduce themselves with their name and address. Sorry about that for the record, and then we'll have Sean tee us up.
Randy Wagner, address is S86W24805 Stonehill Court.
And Judy Wagner, S86W24805 Stonehill Court.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And why don't you tee us up for the request?
Sure. The property in question is a residential property zone R1. It's 3.34 acres in size approximately. They're looking to build a 1,500 square foot accessory building, basically a garage for storage of personal items. Normally, the Plan Commission would not require, review, or the board would not review buildings of that size. It's 3,000 square feet and above for review, but because they're requesting a waiver from the ordinance, as President Fortner has mentioned, to put the building in the front yard, this does require Plan Commission review only. And so normally, there's different standards for where the building is placed. Basically, accessory buildings, this is outside the zoning district. This is the accessory building only section. And it basically has a different standard for lots that front only one street, and then different standards that for lots that front two streets. And they happen to be a corner lot. They're on a small cul-de-sac, but they also front another road as well. And so the rule applies in this case only to the cul-de-sac because that's where their house faces the cul-de-sac, and so that's their front yard. We're not concerned about the other road. The what's being proposed complies in every way with the R1 zoning district. Again, the only difference here is the fact that it doesn't comply with the accessory building requirement for the front yard. There is a special section in the ordinance for waivers, and I'll just quickly read it here. The Plan Commission shall make a determination which shall include consideration, but not necessarily an affirmative finding of the following factors if you are to grant this waiver. If it's granted, it would be consistent with the general intent of the chapter. If it's granted, it would not adversely affect property owners in the area. It would benefit the petitioner's project in a way that's not inconsistent with the village's interest, and whether the petitioner is in full compliance with the applicable ordinances and agreements with the village, and whether instead of granting the request, that the chapter itself should be changed to accommodate the kind of situation presented by the petitioner. And so the Plan Commission shall determine whether it's objectively reasonable to grant the request for a waiver of modification. It may be granted without making an affirmative finding concerning any one of the above listed factors if, on the whole, it's objectively reasonable to do so. So if there's one of those things that it didn't comply with, for instance, if you had a good reason to grant it anyways, you could do so. But what the attorney's asking, again, because most of the waivers that have come forward have been for building size. This is the first one that I've seen for granting something in the front yard, that you should have good rationale as to why you're doing that. And so the petitioner has provided some written narrative as part of this, and maybe now would be a good time to hear from the petitioner as to why it needs to be in the location as it is, and why in its given location it wouldn't negatively affect the surrounding properties.
Yes.
First off, I don't know if you all have like the plot maps in front of you. The way the house is situated on the lot, it sits farther back on the lot where the lot kind of starts to narrow up there. To the south side of the house is a mound system, so I can feasibly not put it on that side of the house. The backyard is too small to where I can't fit it within constraints. The only feasible place I can put it would be to that northeast side of the house. I've pushed it back as far as I can probably push it back and keep in. I know I need a 20-foot distance away from the lot line there, so I went 21 feet just in case something's messed up.
Just a correction, you have to do 21 feet because your height is higher than 18. You're a little bit higher than 18 feet. So I don't know if when you talk to Vince, you have to have another foot of offset because your height is above.
I mean, I was trying to keep the pitch of the garage roof equal with the pitch of the house roof, which was the reason. I can change the pitch on that, which would bring it down.
And the height, I'm saying the height is okay.
All right.
The height is okay. We just would we require that extra foot.
All right.
As you have it.
So it's okay.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, right. It's fine.
Another example is, it's gonna be, from my understanding, my house ends where the attached garage would end, correct? Which would bring me about 22 feet, 8 inches approximately in front of the house. The total part of the garage. Now also on the garage, I wanted to put an 8-foot slab there that'll have a hip roof on it for on nice nights, if it's raining or days, we can go out there and hang out under cover instead of inside the house. Maybe have a beverage.
Which side are you speaking of?
That would be on the south side of the garage towards the house.
Okay, where the smaller door is located, right?
When you say garage, you mean your existing garage or your proposed accessory building?
The proposed
Accessory building.
accessory
Okay,
building, the
okay.
8-foot slab off
Okay.
to the side. That slab I measured out would be about 23 8 inches from the corner of that slab to the garage. The house right now, or I should say, the garage approximately would sit 355 feet off Stonehill Court.
At its closest location?
Yes.
Okay.
Aesthetically, I put it on there to follow the lot line that goes that way. I've tried pushing it back because I can go, I believe it was 10 feet from the house. And aesthetically, it looked like a mosh pit up there. I'm trying to keep it further away. I'm looking to do, I know in here it said white siding, but after talking to a builder, do like LP siding, which would be wood, because my house is cedar. So I do the stain that way. I also have stones that go up about 4 feet, which I'm looking to on the front side of the garage, doing the 4-foot stone up. Garage doors would match the garage doors. I want to make it aesthetically pleasing, not only to the property itself, but to the neighborhood.
So to clarify, you're saying you could push it further toward the house because right now you're
Yeah,
right now you're 32 feet 9 inches from the house.
Yes.
You could go closer to the house and move it further away from the road right away. Do you know how far you can go? I mean, how close would the garage, how much further would the proposed garage be?
By moving it back.
Yeah, I mean, how much could we get some distance there? Because obviously the point is that, the waiver is just like a variance. You want to grant it for the least amount possible because you're breaking the rules of the ordinance, right? And this would be allowing you to break the rules if it's granted, but you'd want to minimize how much you're breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And so, I know you said it doesn't look right there, but there looks like there might be some room to move it.
I would have to go back and restake that out and see where those measurements.
So I'm just raising that as a point of discussion because obviously you said the south side of the house isn't possible because of the mound, and I get
Yes.
that. There's no room in the backyard. That makes sense too. At
It'll
least
make it
for
tight
something
back
this
there.
at least for something this big.
Right, it'd be tight back there. I'm just looking at your diagram right
And
now.
and
In
to the north of that garage is wood. You can't see it from the road during the summer months.
How many feet are you off Stonehill Drive?
From the front of that garage would be, or it's drive.
Stonehill Drive.
Drive,
It's gonna
not
be more
Stonehill
than the
Court,
350.
Stonehill Drive.
Probably gonna be.
No one will drive by Stonehill Court except your
Yeah.
immediate neighbors. The whole neighborhood drives by Stonehill Drive.
But there's
And
no
that's why there's
Probably
no,
the same distance, if not
If
more.
not more.
it looks a little closer actually, although.
I mean, I really don't want to trample through all the woods and brush to try to measure it.
but
out.
it
I just
can
thought
be
you had a
there's
measurement.
it only has to be 50 feet from Stonehill Drive. That's the only requirement.
Well, I get that, Sean, but again,
about the
if
same
we're trying to state, trying to meet you read the criteria.
Right.
I would think the further away from roads goes to, the general intent, the adversely affecting property
Right.
owners in the surrounding area. Because if you can't see it, it's
Right.
a much
One-
easier.
One of the things you could say, at least
Case,
when I looked
right?
at it, would be a reason for granting it, if you chose to do so, in my opinion, would be you can't, from either road, you're not going to be able to perceive one closer to the road than the other. It's such a distance that you're not going to be able to tell that it's
Right,
actually.
that's
in
why
the
I was
front yard.
asking, whether it's 350 feet from Stonehill Drive, which is the road that people are going to notice it from.
That, and in addition
Right.
to
I'd say
the,
that it's probably that distance, if not more. Don't
It's
you
close. I'm guessing.
think? It'll be
350.
very close.
Yeah, I'm guessing
Because that
350
lot
plus or
line
minus.
does run
Yeah.
on an angle,
Yeah,
doesn't run straight too.
Right.
so that fact coupled with the existing vegetation on the property, and obviously in the winter you can see into the property a little more than you
Little
can in the
more, yes.
summertime, but it certainly obscures the view into the property.
I was talking to the one neighbor today at the end of the driveway, and we were discussing again, we're looking up there, and he goes, you know what, you really can't even see it from the end of your driveway here.
That's because it's not there.
But I'm phone.
He knows where it is.
Do you mind if I
No,
talk?
go ahead.
Just going back to when we were trying to decide, like, okay, we understand that there's this ordinance, and we tried to push it back as far as we can without really kind of having it right on top of the house. The other thing, too, is that our well is on that northwest corner of the house as well. So it would be kind of on that side where the garage would be. So moving it back as well as kind of moving it,
I'm getting closer to that
because
well.
we'd have to get closer to the house. Plus our electrical, right, is over there.
No.
Not, what's the other thing
It's
that's there?
gas.
It's gas. The gas is over there as well. So, I mean, we really did try to do our best at, okay, this is, we are going in front of the house. We try to minimize that as much as possible. We got it down to the 23, 24 feet range. We still feel that we are so set back, the 350 some odd yards or feet away from Stonehill Court, hopefully Stonehill Drive. I mean, we really did try to come up with the best scenario to hopefully get the variance granted, but.
Quick measurement to see if I can see the distance difference.
Did you build this house or did you buy it?
We
We
bought
bought
it.
it.
Yeah, we bought it.
So the prior owner pushed it so far back, you have no room in your backyard to build a building?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Basically.
not for a structure.
Although you do have a small one back there, I think.
We have a garden shed.
There was
in
a
the back.
garden shed back there.
And I see your garden, at least on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, what time of year was it?
Whenever Google flew over.
And enclosed in that packet also, I did get letters from both
Our
the immediate
neighbors.
neighbors and the other neighbor in the court, so.
Yeah, we'll get those into the record too here shortly.
Okay.
121 and 151. Oh, I see.
I want to know how many feet it is behind the average setback.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
about 150.
152.
About that, yeah.
So Dan, that was too quiet of a sidebar, so we need to
So
have
what?
it a little
so
louder so everybody could hear, sorry.
What I was getting at is I had Sean put a line from the house to the north, the front of the house to the north, to the front of the house to the south. And this garage would be set about 153 feet behind the average setback of those two homes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's in their backyard.
in their
It's in the neighbor's backyard, it's not
Right.
in front of, okay, I see what you're saying.
Right, it's 150 feet in their backyards, yeah.
And Sean, did you get a Stonehill
Yeah, it looks like Stonehill is about 310 feet
310?
away, and then Stonehill Drive is 310 feet, and then Stonehill Court is about 320, 330, somewhere in there.
So roughly the same, not the 355, but the 310. Well, at least it's more than a football field. 153 from neighbors. Okay, yeah, and we did, you made an earlier point. We did receive letters, emails, I think Karen, you printed them for everybody in the packet, so let me just go through them quickly, just to make sure that our record is complete. We've got one from the bosses, BAAS. They live 2 doors from Wagner's. This letter is to advise all interested parties that my wife and I have no issues with the size of the location of the proposed they call it a shed, it's more of a garage.
Yeah, it's a garage.
Yeah, a shed is a 10 by 20.
Yeah.
This is from the Wikinskis, Wicinski. We have the direct neighbors to the north, so that's that's one of your immediate neighbors, I guess,
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're
on
right
Stonehill Drive.
right?
Right
And
next
Mr.
door.
President, I did notify everybody within 500 feet, and that's the only comments we had was the positive ones.
Okay. Okay, so there were no negative ones.
No.
Right, and they also say no issue building a garage, they say anywhere on your property, not just where you proposed it. And Ed and Marilyn Hall, who some of us on the board know very well. They're the neighbors at S86 W242.5, so I'm not sure if that's
Yeah,
directly.
they're next
Directly
door
to
on
the
the other
south.
side.
Side, yeah, I was gonna say, they're
Stonehill
directly
Road.
south,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And they say they have no objection to it. So, and I think those are the three written comments, or, I mean, people who are here, they could give oral comments or not. And we notified people within 500 feet.
500 feet, yes, sir.
Plan Commission members, further questions for the Wagners or Sean?
You say your present house is cedar siding?
Cedar siding, and then it has,
Stone about 4 feet
Yeah.
up with the
Okay.
legend and cedar the rest of the way.
And what color is that cedar? Is it stained?
kind
or-
of a
Reddish, barn red type color.
And your accessory building will be compatible with that?
Yeah.
and Trying to match
Yeah.
as
Oh,
close as
yes.
possible?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use cedar because of the price. So
Right,
I'm looking to
right.
LP
Well,
with the wood.
not as durable either.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm looking into doing the 4 foot high in the front part of the garage with stone, and then the LP the rest of the way up to match the house.
look, we love our house and where we live, so certainly we would want the garage to kind of match the look and
And
feel
we-
that we have right now.
And we don't want this garage to take away from the house. You know, when we want someone to come to our property, I want our house to
Well,
be the
that's-
focal point.
That's your entrance to your property.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yep,
you see that first, to me, pretty much.
Exactly.
Well, I do notice you have two concrete pads off your driveway, and those, I assume you considered but rejected them. That would have been a logical place, but that would have even been a worse place right in front of your house.
I didn't even think I could put a garage there
And
because it's.
the other one is close to your mound. Maybe you could squeeze it in there, but that again would be in front of your
In
house.
front of the house, even more than,
Even more than what you've proposed.
Yes.
That is true. Questions? Commissioner Solani?
Nope.
Commissioner Noack?
I don't know what direction you were leaning, but in your deliberation or in your approval, again, the attorney was clear that he wanted, if you do approve it, the reasons why this would be approved, because it will set something of a precedent.
Right, and that goes to letter E, the list of 5, Sean, when you say whether instead of granting, we should just change our ordinances. You know, there's a reason why the ordinances are to keep people from building them in their front yards,
Right.
you know, because.
Because generally they're unsightly if anyone can build an accessory building in their front yard. Not every accessory building has to come to the plan commission for one.
Right,
So you're not always getting the quality of the 3,000 square foot buildings that come here. So if you eliminate that altogether, then you're going to be asking for trouble in terms of appearance of residential properties. So I think we would not want to remove that in any case. How could we modify that for these particular situations? I don't know if we could, because it's always going to be subjective. It's always going to be based on the circumstances. How visible is it? How much landscaping is, whether or not the property owners that surround it are in support of it, all those things kind of weigh into the decision as to whether or not to grant a waiver for something like this. And so I don't think we can codify that.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say we shouldn't have them in front yards.
Right.
Speaking of landscaping, we do have a lot of hardwood trees, and I think that's helpful. I know we've had instances, since I've been on the Plan Commission, where the oversized building comes in and we've made people do some screening, most recently on
That's
Maple
correct, because there
Avenue.
wasn't any around.
Because there
it.
wasn't any.
Mhm.
Here you've got some at least,
I put trees in every year.
Yeah.
right? Well, then you're like me, let's plant
Yeah,
some more, right?
yeah.
The neighbors are all at least not raising objections to it, so that's helpful. It is, as Sean measured it out, 320 feet from Stonehill Court, and it looks like 310 feet from Stonehill Drive, so those are the it's over 300. To me, if there's precedence here to be set, I think it's important that this one is proposed 300 feet away from a public road, all public roads.
Distance from roadway.
Yeah, distance from roadway. To your point, Dan, I think it's important as well, I appreciate that, it's 150 feet, at least 150 feet from the back of the two immediate neighbors' homes?
The,
Is that
the
what-
front of them. So it's
The front of them.
Right.
From the front of the neighbor's home. So that's helpful, I think, too. I think also as helpful is that it's not entirely in the front yard. You've got it maybe half in the front yard, half in the side yard, right? Approximately. It's 30 by 50 building, Sean. They're saying is it 24
Not
feet?
quite half.
Not
almost,
quite half.
yeah, almost 24 feet closer than the house, right?
Right, not quite half. Close to half, approximately.
Yeah.
Approximately.
Being that far from the roadway, it's gonna be hard to determine if the house is closer or if the garage is closer.
Imperceptible, right.
Because of that, because of the distance from the roadways, and there's two roadways here. I mean, if there's only
Right.
one, I'd be looking at one. But there's two. There's two public roads. Those are the people, that's what the public drives by and sees.
Sure.
Right?
Very, very
And the
hard to
fact that it's partially on the side yard helps to that point, right, Dan? That
Very hard to
it's gonna
see
be
from
hard to
Stonehill
discern it.
Drive.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Easier from your court, maybe a little bit.
Do you see any need for any additional screening? Evergreens, for example. I know on some people we say, well, if you're gonna screen it, you gotta plant an evergreen at least, right?
Sounds like he may do that on his own.
I've been putting some
some point.
pine trees in the area up there in the wasteland, so.
Jim, you're,
Yeah, I don't see that there's many options. I mean, you can't fit it in the backyard.
well,
And
it would be
having to move
tight.
the house forward, probably not
That's not cost effective.
not cost effective.
If Mr. Wagner would have built the home and created this situation, it would probably be different.
Right.
But he's the second owner, and you have to accept what is. so.
I would have made the garage bigger if I built it.
That's right.
Right.
Everybody says that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's, yeah.
the guy was a mason, I can't get a truck in there.
Jim, we got interrupted probably.
Yeah, no, and the fact that you have so many now I can't tell how tall these trees are.
They're mature.
Are they? I mean,
According to Google.
oh yeah, that is better. You know, I don't see any reason not to grant it.
Other than generally it's, yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm,
other than the
that's what
fact
I'm.
that it's in front of the house a
House,
little
right,
bit.
Right. On our list of things, so we would say that if it was granted, it would be consistent with the general intent of the neighborhood, intent of the chapter,
In terms of protection of setbacks and offsets and other
right? The
neighbors enjoying
setbacks
their
and offsets,
properties.
The
right.
compatibility is all going to be met. None of that's waived. None of our regular
Right.
rules are waived. Would it adversely affect property owners in the surrounding area? Well, we've got the neighbors, not objecting to it, so that's a good sign.
And it's well screened.
And it's well screened, so those are two positives. The third one is, would benefit the petitioner's project in a way that is not inconsistent. So is it consistent with the village's interests? I would say it's, or not inconsistent. I don't know how you word that. Is it inconsistent? It's inconsistent with our ordinance, but that's why they're here.
When we developed that ordinance, was to prevent eyesores, visible from the road.
That's what I'm thinking.
This is gonna look like part of the house, the same general makeup for materials and stuff, and the setback so far, it's not really visible from the road.
Right, I would agree it'd be hard to see. And otherwise, you're in full compliance with, we're not waiving anything else, that's letter D, really, right, John?
Right, and we don't want to remove the requirement to have,
Right.
to prohibit accessory buildings in the
Right.
front yard. And it's so nuanced, again, that it's hard to write a code to say, okay, you can do it sometimes, and here's when you can do it, because it's so subjective. And so
Right.
that's why the whole waiver process exists.
But I think as far as the attorney warned us about setting precedent, I think that's a fair warning. I think in this particular instance, given the fact that it is at least 300 feet from any public road, at least 150 feet from the behind the front of the two immediate neighbors' houses, the fact that it's well screened with existing mature hardwood trees, in particular to the Stonehill Drive, public roadway, the one that has the traffic on, as opposed to Stonehill Court, which has how many houses on two?
Three of them, well,
Three.
including ours, three.
Three houses. Right. Right. Limited,
Right.
right, limited options, because it was, you did not create the situation. How's that? You did not create the situation by building a home with limited backyard space available. The space in the backyard, although possible, maybe could contain fit the size, it would be awfully crowded and hard to construct in that tight of an area. The mound system on the south side of the house really I know you can't build within 30 feet of a mound system, and that's even, aggressive at 30. You're better off at 50 or even more from a mound system, so that eliminates to the south. Is there any other?
And the positive comments from neighbors.
Yep.
I mean, if you approve it, you've got all the criteria that the attorney wanted you to have in that criteria.
Right.
That being said, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the waiver for the location of the accessory building for Randy Wagner as submitted.
Yeah, it was subject to the conditions set forth and
Correct.
in the staff report, all 11 of them. Any further conditions that we think to add? I don't have any, but,
No.
okay. See if I got your motion. Do we need to, well, we had a discussion. I guess we had a discussion of the criteria.
I'll second it.
Okay, Jim's
second.
got a second. And, Mr. President, you're in the discussion, I'll put that how you discuss the narrative of the waiver, and then all the conditions of why this particular waiver was approved.
Right, because the attorney says the motion should set forth all the reasons why an exception should be granted, and that'll be.
And that
part of
will
it.
be in there, Mr. President?
That'll be part of the motion?
Got all those comments.
Yes, I do.
Okay, then that's part of the motion,
Yes, sir.
and you've got a second. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
I'll send the approval
Thank you very
to Vince, so Vince will have that, and then you'll just get your building permit through.
Question. Where do I find the height when you said instead of 20 feet, you
The exception of it, the rule is basically this, is that for every foot of height you go above 18 feet, you gotta be an additional foot off of
1 foot.
1 foot. So 20 feet's the normal offset from the lot line. If you go, because you're 18.7, I think,
you go 21.
you go 21. If you were another foot, you go 22.
All right,
Gotcha.
all right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Other question, how long do I have to build this?
Typically 18 months.
18
Yeah,
months?
yeah.
But it
Because
can be extended.
builders
It can
right
extend.
now and construction
yeah.
guys I'm dealing with are
Yeah, maybe next
lucky
year.
if they call you back after they meet with you, and
Right.
it's getting to be a joke.
Yeah,
Randy, just keep in touch with Vince.
yeah.
All right, I will.
So I guess that's a good question, by the way, that I didn't think to ask, but the different way of stating that is, how long is this waiver good for? And what you're saying is 18 months, because you got
Well,
to pull a building permit within 18 months, or how?
No, what I'll do is I'll issue a zoning permit based on
Okay.
the decision, and it's got time limits based on our normal
A normal
permits.
zoning permit?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know there was some type of limit that I had.
Yeah,
All right,
So it's our regular
regular permit
zoning permit,
expiration, yeah.
right, which can come back in for
They
extension.
can come back
but-
in.
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
And we understand the construction trades, right?
Believe me, I want it
And
done
the
before
prices.
this winter.
And the prices.
Don't even
Yes.
talk to me about
Yeah.
that right now. Oh, it's sitting too much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening. Minutes. April, yeah, April 14th. You want to table them and read them for next time, or it's the dog?
Oh, that's
Yeah, I saw I was going to read through those. You want me to read through those agreements? Oh,
But if you want to table the minutes, I don't care. I mean, it's all the neighbors that talk.
you can table them, we can.
Yeah. I had this packet for a long time, there weren't any minutes in it.
You want
I got
mine?
this. Is that it?
Yeah.
Move to approve. I read them if we had them.
Oh, you did?
Wait.
Oh.
Okay, so you're moving to approve the April 14th, 2021 Plan Commission minutes. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a
Move to
motion.
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
I'm lost without Fred.
Yeah,
Ta.
that was
Funny.
a house that blew up. And they finally, yes, gas leak, and the
We off?
person that's interested in the lot.
Off.
is-
Okay, so lives in Big Bend,
Lives in Big
to
Bend.
the north. So what do they want to do with them?
But he said, well.
Well, that didn't go
can
so
I build on
badly.
it? And I said, no.
Build what?
I'll put in a septic.
No, you can't because it then doesn't have a principal structure.
So I just, he asked, well, what if it, I said,
When you combine the lots.
yeah, but if you combine the lots, would it stay in Vernon?
Yes, you can have a lot that's over yours. It can't be across the